The midday sun beat down on the concrete and steel of Naval Base San Diego, a familiar, oppressive weight that seemed to settle in the bones of everyone on the mess hall's sprawling patio. For Chief Petty Officer Sarah Jenkins, it was just another Tuesday. She moved through the line with the practiced economy of someone who had done this thousands of times before, her tray laden with a grilled chicken salad and a bottle of water. Her dark hair was pulled back in a no-nonsense ponytail, and she wore the standard-issue Navy working uniform, the fabric soft and faded from countless washes. On her uniform, the only thing that might catch a discerning eye was the absence of any flashy qualifications. No SEAL trident, no jump wings, just the subdued rank insignia of a chief and a name tape that read Jenkins. That was by design. And she found a small, circular table at the edge of the patio, away from the main thoroughfare of sailors coming and going. It was her spot, a place where she could eat in relative peace, observe, and decompress. She pulled out a well-worn paperback, its spine cracked from multiple reads, and began to pick at her salad, her eyes scanning the page, but her peripheral vision cataloging the entire space around her. It was an unconscious habit, a switch that never truly turned off. Across the patio, 4 sailors from the USS Michael Murphy, a sleek Arleigh Burke-class destroyer, were also on their lunch break. They were young, full of the swagger and bravado that often came with being part of a carrier strike group's screen. Their names were Seaman Apprentice Miller, a broad-shouldered kid from Ohio, Seaman Jones, a wiry and quick with a sharp tongue, Petty Officer Third Class Davies, the self-appointed leader of the group who had just made his rank and was eager to assert himself, and Seaman Recruit Thompson, the newest and quietest member of their division, still finding his footing. They grabbed their trays and scanned the crowded patio for a table. Miller, a plate of 4 hot dogs and a mountain of fries in front of him, spotted the small table with the lone woman. "What about that one?" he asked, nodding towards Sarah. Davies, his chest puffed out slightly in his crisp uniform, frowned. "Nah, man, that's the chief's table. Everyone knows that. The gray-haired master-at-arms with the coffee, the quiet chief from supply, they all leave it for her." Jones snorted, balancing his own tray. "So, it's first come, first served, and it's 4 of us. She's just one person. She can move. Besides," he added with a smirk, lowering his voice, "look at her, reading a book, probably some admin clerk. She won't say anything." Thompson shifted uncomfortably. "Maybe we should just find another table, guys. It's crowded, but we can squeeze in somewhere." "Nonsense," Davies declared, his mind made up. He saw this as a perfect opportunity to demonstrate his leadership and assertiveness to his new shipmates. "Follow me." They approached the table, their boots thudding on the concrete. Sarah didn't look up from her book. She was at a good part, a tense standoff between the protagonist and an adversary, but she was acutely aware of the 4 shadows that now fell across her table. "Excuse me," Davies said, his voice carrying the practiced authority of a 3-year PO3. We need this table." Sarah slowly turned a page, her eyes never leaving the text. "There are other tables," she said, her voice calm and even, devoid of any emotion. Jones stepped forward, emboldened by her lack of eye contact. "Yeah, but we want this one. It's the best spot. We're from the Murphy. We're getting ready to head out on a big deployment. We need to, talk shop." He puffed up his chest, the name of his ship a supposed badge of honor that should open any door. Sarah finally looked up, her gaze sliding from Jones to Davies, then to Miller, and finally resting on Thompson, who looked like he wanted to be anywhere else. Her eyes were a calm, steady gray, and they held no fear, no annoyance, just a patient, unnerving stillness. "I'm eating my lunch," she stated simply. "And I was here first." Davies felt a flicker of irritation. This wasn't going according to plan. Civilians and support personnel were supposed to defer to the operational guys, the ones on the front lines. "Look, Chief," he said, the rank feeling clumsy on his tongue. "We're not asking. We're going to sit here. You can finish your lunch somewhere else." Miller, trying to be helpful to his friend, stepped closer and put a hand on the back of the empty chair opposite Sarah. "It's just for a bit," he said, his tone less aggressive but still dismissive. "We'll be quick." Sarah looked at his hand on the chair, then back up at him. She set her book down, face open, on the table. She didn't close it, just placed it carefully beside her salad. "Don't touch the chair," she said. Her voice hadn't raised. But there was a subtle shift in its timbre, a hardened edge that hadn't been there a moment before. Jones laughed, a short, sharp sound. "Or what? You gonna call the master-at-arms? Write us a nasty memo?" He looked at his buddies for approval. Davies managed a weak smile while Thompson just stared at his boots. Sarah sighed, a soft exhalation of air. It wasn't a sigh of defeat, but one of profound, weary disappointment. She looked directly at Jones. "Put your tray down," she instructed, her voice low. "What?" Jones asked, confused by the non sequitur. "Put your tray down on the table," she repeated. "Go on. Put it right next to mine." Hesitantly, playing along, Jones placed his tray on the edge of the table. The moment the plastic touched the surface, Sarah moved. It wasn't fast in the way a sprinter is fast. It was faster, as it was the speed of a striking snake, a compressed, violent economy of motion that was over before the brain could even register it had begun. In one fluid, seamless movement, she was on her feet, her right hand snapping out and grabbing Jones by the wrist. With a sharp twist, she torqued his arm behind his back, at the same time sweeping his legs out from under him with a precise, brutal kick to the back of his knee. Jones let out a choked yelp as he went down, his face smacking against the concrete with a dull thud that vibrated through the soles of their boots. His tray clattered to the ground, a soda can rolling in a lazy circle. It took less than 2 seconds. Miller, shocked into action, lunged for her. It was a clumsy, untrained move, all strength and no technique. Sarah didn't even bother to fully release Jones. She used his pinned body as a pivot point, shifting her weight and snapping a side kick into Miller's solar plexus as he came within range. The air left his lungs in a whoosh, and he doubled over, collapsing to his knees, gasping for breath like a fish out of water. Davies stood frozen, his brain struggling to process what his eyes were seeing. This wasn't a clerk. This wasn't a supply officer. This was something else entirely. He saw his chance, a momentary distraction, as Sarah's focus was split between the two downed men. He balled his fist and threw a wild, looping punch aimed at the side of her head. Sarah saw it coming from a mile away. It was telegraphed by the shift in his shoulders, the clenching of his jaw. She didn't block it. Instead, she flowed under it, ducking low and driving her shoulder into his stomach. As she wrapped her arms around his waist, straightened her legs, and in a perfect textbook hip toss, launched him over her hip. He sailed through the air for a brief, terrifying moment before crashing onto the table where Sarah had been sitting just seconds before. The cheap table leg buckled under the impact, sending her salad, her water bottle, and her precious book flying. Davies lay sprawled amidst the wreckage, groaning, the wind knocked completely out of him. 25 seconds had passed. Thompson hadn't moved. He stood rooted to the spot, his eyes wide as dinner plates, his tray trembling in his hands. He watched as Sarah Jenkins straightened up, not even breathing hard. She looked at him, and her expression softened, just a fraction. She gave a tiny, almost imperceptible shake of her head. It wasn't a threat. It was a lesson. Don't be like them. Then, the world caught up. The chatter on the patio had died completely. Every sailor, from the lowliest seaman to a grizzled senior chief sitting 3 tables over, was staring. The silence was absolute, broken only by the pained groans of Jones, Miller, and Davies. Jones was trying to push himself up, his nose bloodied. Miller was still on his knees, wheezing. Davies was just starting to untangle himself from the broken table, his face a mask of shock and humiliation. The senior chief, a man with a face like a battered suitcase and 25 years of service, slowly rose from his seat. He walked over, his gaze taking in the scene. He looked down at the three men on the ground, then at Sarah, who was calmly picking up her book. The paperback had landed face down, its pages bent. She straightened the spine with care, a flicker of genuine annoyance crossing her features for the first time. "You all right, Chief?" the senior chief asked Sarah, his voice gruff with respect. Sarah looked up, tucking the book under her arm. "Fine, Senior. Just a minor disruption to my lunch." The senior chief then turned his gaze to Davies, who had finally managed to stand, clutching his ribs. The senior chief didn't say a word. He didn't have to. His stare alone was a torpedo salvo, stripping Davies of every ounce of his false bravado. He then looked at Jones and Miller, who were slowly, painfully getting to their feet. Finally, his eyes fell on Thompson, still standing there, frozen. "You," the senior chief barked at Thompson. "Who's your division officer?" Thompson swallowed hard. Lieutenant Commander Mitchell." "Senior chief." "Good. You're going to go straight back to your ship. You're going to find Lieutenant Commander Mitchell, and you're going to tell him exactly what you just saw, every detail. If I find out you left out the part where 3 of your shipmates tried to bully a senior NCO and got their asses handed to them, I will personally ensure your next duty station is a weather observation post in Attic, Alaska. Understood?" Yes, Senior Chief," Thompson stammered. He looked at Sarah, a look of pure, unadulterated awe on his young face. He turned and hurried away, his tray forgotten. The senior chief turned back to the other 3. "You 3, get to the infirmary, get checked out. Then you will report to your command master chief. He's been notified. You can explain to him how you tried to physically remove a chief from her seat and got dismantled in front of half the base." Jones, his face smeared with blood from his nose, stared at Sarah, a question forming in his pain-addled mind. Who the hell are you?" Sarah finished brushing a smudge of dirt off her uniform. She looked at him, her gray eyes calm and clear. She didn't say a word. She simply reached into the collar of her NWU and pulled out a thin chain. Dangling from the end of it, catching the bright California sun, was a small golden trident, the Navy SEAL insignia. It glinted, a small but potent symbol of a world they couldn't even begin to comprehend. She let it fall back against her chest, tucking it away. Then, without another glance at the 3 broken young men, she bent down and picked up her battered water bottle. She looked at the ruined salad on the ground, the scattered pieces of lettuce and tomato. With a final disappointed sigh, she turned and walked away, leaving the stunned silence of the mess hall patio in her wake. The 3 of them just stood there, amidst the debris of their own shattered pride. 45 seconds. That's all it had taken. 45 seconds to learn a lesson they would carry with them for the rest of their lives, that in the military, as in life, you can never judge a book by its cover, and some covers you should never ever try to close.